Is Kyle Larson about to take on the World of Outlaws? Rumors are swirling that Kyle Larson and his High Limit series could be joining forces with Tony Stewart's All-Star Circuit of Champions. Whether that's a merger, a complete buyout from Larson's side, it still seems to be up in the air. Tony Stewart bought All-Star back in 2015 and it was a struggling series, and they run majority of their races in Ohio and Indiana. It's not a national touring series like the World of Outlaws is, but combining that with High Limit is a pretty interesting prospect because for the first time it could create a real legitimate contender to the World of Outlaws. Of course, the World of Outlaws has a ton of brand value with not only their name, but they also carry a ton of weight within the sprint car community. They have the biggest events. They have the marquee events. It's a bit like IRL taking the 500 and then, CART over here taking the US 500. That's how this breakdown would be, with the big races still being over on World of Outlaws, but you could have, on average, higher paying races on the High Limit All-Star side, which makes this really interesting. Kyle Larson, of course, started High Limit Series because he wanted races to have higher purses, midweek races for big money, right? $23,000 to $50,000, winner take all. Where the World of Outlaws certainly has high-paying events, right? High Bank Nationals at Huset's was $250,000 to win. This weekend at Williams Grove, it's $75,000 to win. The Knoxville Nationals, $175,000. They have big money races. But at the same time, their weekly races at just random places will only have maybe a $10,000 purse, maybe $12,000. That's just not acceptable at a time when everything is more expensive. And Kyle Larson has been probably the most outspoken about purses within dirt racing. Chili Bowl was the first one that he went after, and then he goes and starts High Limit and is seemingly able to pay out $23,000 plus to the winner for 13 events. And granted, doing that over an entire schedule is probably not realistic. But at the same time, making the financial model work better for the teams is something I think he and Brad Sweet and everybody involved in that side really want to make happen. Where on the World of Outlaws side, they have a pretty exclusive agreement. So the World Racing Group, which is the parent company to the World of Outlaws, has a platinum program for teams that race exclusively with the World of Outlaws for the season. There's a higher fund payout at the end of the year. At the same time, they're only allowed to race in 4 non-outlaw events a year, which is why High Limit struggles to get some of those bigger name World of Outlaw guys that are racing for the championship over on the Outlaws side. They also had to increase it to 4 races because that $1 million race at Eldora this year, people are like, we have to race that. Like, there's no way we're not going to race that. So teams do have a little bit of control with the World of Outlaw and the World Racing Group, but not a lot. And that's part of the big problem here. Teams have gone to World Racing Group and said, you need to pay us more money. We don't think that you're being truthful with your financials. And on the other side, World Racing Group saying, you don't understand our financials, we can't pay more money. And it's a bit of a stalemate, which is why we've seen this uprise in a potential new venture. There's also a major streaming war happening behind the scenes here. Both High Limit and All-Star are on Flow Racing. Dirt Vision is the in-house streaming partner and product of World Racing Group and World of Outlaws. So World of Outlaws is exclusively on Dirt Vision. Flow Racing would love to have High Limit and All-Star merge into what would essentially be a near national touring series, one that can rival the World of Outlaws. That's huge for them. That allows them to be like, you want to see the best, potentially, you can come over here and watch this on Flow Racing. It's cheaper than Dirt Vision as well for now. We'll see where that plays out. At the same time, though, Kyle Larson's name is a huge draw, and Flow knows that they can get Kyle Larson to have High Limit and All-Star merge into one, and then he show up at a decent number of those events. That's huge for them. They know people are going to come over there and watch that. Sure, people are going to keep paying for Dirt Vision, keep watching the World of Outlaws, because like I said, there's a ton of brand value with that World of Outlaws name. But at the same time, having Kyle Larson have his own series, and he's exclusively racing on Flow. We'll just say that. Maybe he just stops doing World of Outlaws. Doubt it, but we'll see how that all plays out, because the World of Outlaws isn't very happy with the High Limit series, and that's essentially why they've only limited them to 4 non-outlaw races a year. And, Kyle Larson and the World of Outlaws always seem like they're in a bit of a standoff. But if they're exclusively racing on Flow, that's huge for Flow. That's a big name draw for them. And while all of this is happening, World Racing Group and the World of Outlaws has positioned themselves for a future sale. And who would buy them? Not 100% sure, but they have a ton of brand value in the World of Outlaws. They have their streaming platform in Dirt Vision, which is all done in-house. Everything happens within that World Racing Group, universe. There's nothing that they really outsource anywhere. They don't have to worry about TV negotiations or anything like that. Who the buyers would be, it's really up in the air. Whether that would be like a Liberty Media or somebody in that media sphere that would like to get their hands on this, the Saudis with the PIF, it's really kind of a toss-up. There's not a clear name out there, but it is something that has been floated around for the better part of a year that they could be potentially setting themselves up for a sale. While that's happening, Kyle Larson and his High Limit series and the All-Star series potentially merging at a time where things are maybe up in the air with the World of Outlaws on what their future is owner-wise, is a great time for them to pounce. The problem here is having two rival series. We've seen this play out, right, with the IRL and kart. It never really pans out that well, and eventually they all end up merging. Even Live merged with the PGA Tour, and we never thought that would happen. So while you can build up a really good series over here with High Limit and All-Star merging and still have the World of Outlaws over here, you are essentially splitting your fan base in half. Half of them are going to go over here. The other half are going to go over here and watch Kyle Larson and the All-Star side. So that's not really great for business. And eventually they'll find their ways back and they'll merge, and then somebody will claim that they're the winner, and they'll probably keep the World of Outlaw name because, like I said, ton of brand value with that. It's a great way for everybody to make some money, though. And that's really what this comes down to. People aren't doing this out of the goodness of their heart. Kyle Larson's not exploring a potential merger with the All-Star Circuit of Champions, and World of Outlaws isn't exploring a potential sale just because they, want to get out of it. At the end of the day, it's all about the money. And we'll see how it plays out. But the future of dirt racing is looking pretty promising. More big money races is not a bad thing. It's good for the sport, it's good for the fans, and it's good to get everybody to come out for it. What the limitations will be on those races and who can compete in them and who can't, that'll be the really interesting part. And I know a majority of that's going to come from the World of Outlaws side. So let me know in the comments if you think this is going to happen. Good idea, bad idea. Like and subscribe to the channel. Follow me on TikTok at BreakHard, Instagram and Twitter at BreakHardBlog.